This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
Hello Internet, Taliesin here. Today we are talking the future, the year 2025. Picture the scene. You take the flying bus home from your job at the factory, where you shovel all museum exhibits into a blast furnace to power the Uber AI, get back to your apartment, take part in the compulsory 2-minute LOL, where all citizens must sit and laugh at World President Musk's really funny new memes, and then you fire up World of Warcraft and log into Remix Legion. Because during the Warcraft 30th Anniversary Direct, we were presented with a whole roadmap for next year and everything we've got to look forward to in it, including player housing, goblins, visions of N'Zoth again, player housing, the reveal of next expansion and chapter in the World Soul Saga, Midnight, player housing, and right at the very end of the year, this rather cryptic glowing green tinge on the timeline. Seemed a bit meaningful, that, and I think it's fair to say that most people theorized it represented the glowing fell goodness of the Legion version of Remix Mists of Pandaria that we got this year.
Is there any chance on the horizon we can see something like Legion Remix maybe later in the future?
There's some fell green tinge towards the right end of the roadmap. If you take a look at the banner there, who knows what that could mean.
Yeah.
So there we have it. At the end of 2025, assuming any of us are still alive, we will be getting World of Warcraft Remix Legion. And this is very, very exciting indeed. Partly because the remix format is really great anyway, partly because we've had a chance now to see what works well and not so well from our adventures in Pandaria, but most of all because Legion as an expansion offers us some unique opportunities for remix fun that Blizzard must not miss. Ian's been very clear about how they want to hear feedback and ideas about player housing in the coming 12 months. Well, this is my feedback and ideas about Legion Remix and how it could and should be the best remix of them all. Okay, go. Remix Pandaria. Mists of Pandaria Remix was one of those sneaky little surprise packages that cropped up during Dragonflight, like Plunderstorm before it, and just like Plunderstorm, it was a completely new way to play the game, pretty much separate from the main retail experience. So you'd have to create a new character who would then be entrusted by the Bronze Dragonflight to go back in time and observe the events of the Mists of Pandaria expansion. An incredibly important job that absolutely must not fail because the whole fate of the universe could depend on these observations, which is why they're sending a level 1 punk-ass shaman to get it done, albeit empowered by the Threads of Fate upgrades and special gear that drops throughout the experience. The opening scenarios of the X-Pack were pretty true to the original before that new borrowed power really kicked in. And it wasn't long before you were leveling at lightning quick pace, getting gear with special ability gem things to slot into them and watching your core stats go through the roof as you quested, dungeoned, scenarioed and raided to get all that good stuff, as well as bronze for upgrading the gear further and buying all the sweet cosmetics, which were really the point of all of this, as well as the achievements that would then allow you to buy certain special things. So straight up, here were the things that were cool about Mists of Pandaria Remix. 1. Pandaria. It was genuinely brilliant to be back in one of the all-time great expansions. Arguably the most atmospheric WoW expansion ever, but definitely the most visually distinct and unique. Just to have the excuse of existing in that world again, soaking up those vibes and music, having a real reason to complete the storylines of each zone to unlock new cosmetics and other rewards, it was awesome. And because the remix gameplay style is so bonkers and kind of not representative of the normal WoW experience, it didn't even step on Mist of Pandaria Classics shoes either. If anything, it just whet the player's appetite for it even more. Power. The gear upgrade system had its controversies, which we'll get into in a moment, but the overall sense of overpoweredness that the players were given was vital to the remix experience and felt great. Much as I loved the idea of drinking deep from the Pandaria content well again, I was also thankful that I could do it at top speed and with the strength of an absolute monster baller. One of the most important decisions that Blizz made, in my opinion, was to allow dragon riding, dynamic flying from the very off, so players could whiz off and just get stuff done. And yeah, so from very early on, we weren't exactly appreciating those exquisite dungeons and raids so much as blasting through them without a second thought, but that's okay. Rewards. Having basically every transmog, weapon appearance, mount, pet, toy, and trinket from the entire expansion on vendors to buy with bronze was brilliant and gave players a tangible objective to aim for, which would be different for everyone, adding some unique goodies like recolors of the trading post class set appearances, which could only be unlocked for purchase by completing the max level campaign zones, and other brand new stuff for completing a certain number of new zone achievements. And you are looking at an expansion spanning collectathon, the likes of which we have never seen before. Even the super rare Tusks of Manaroth transmog shoulders could be bought, albeit with a set number of Garrosh raid kills on top of the bronze. This item, which I have over 1,000 kills on my account for and which have never dropped for me, I have them now, and I'm going to be honest, it feels very cool. I'm happy with that, yes. The timing of Remix was another thing that had going for it, coming as it did right where you'd usually be looking forward to a content drought before a new expansion. Dragonflight Season 4 was in its closing stages, all eyes were looking forward to new expansion War Within. Remix did a great job of just giving players a fun excuse to play the game, and honestly, I think that's pretty much all that 90% of players ever need. I only spent about 3 weeks actually playing Remix in the end before I was done, both in terms of getting the rewards I wanted and just I'd had my fun with it. But there is no doubt it is a great way to end an expansion and keep players engaged. Lovely. Alright, what was the bad about Remix? Well, not loads that wasn't sorted out during Mists of Pandaria Remix itself, to be honest. Bronze drop rates were massively increased throughout the run to levels that they always should have been at launch. A recurring theme in many of these events, to the extent that Ian Hazakostas had to actually address it in a recent interview. There was stupidly unbalanced gems that resulted in very annoying meta raid tactics like Word of Salvation stacking. Blah. And gem management on gear was horrible, like really horrible, very cluttered and unintuitive and bad, and that was sorted too. By add-ons, by one of the most beautiful add-ons I have ever seen. Which, okay, that's not a tick for Blizzard technically, this still sucked, but seriously, look at this add-on. Look how beautiful this is. There were some other annoying niggles that didn't get changed, which you would like to see addressed in future events, like gems not being mailable between ults, and the gear upgrade system itself, which still, understandably, splits community opinion. The fact that it costs the same currency to upgrade your gear, the many levels it took to max out and get involved with the highest level of play, was the same currency that you bought the rewards with, which were arguably the whole point of the event. That felt weird and contradictory, and like you're always losing whatever you do. Like, I want to feel good when I upgrade my gear. I don't want to feel like I've sacrificed anything because I could have got a cool dragon instead. Likewise, I don't want to feel stupid for buying a cool dragon because I suspect deep down I really should have spent that bronze upgrading my gear first. It's better in the long run, right? I think there might be a case to be made for these being different currencies. That is very subtle foreshadowing. Remix Legion. Now, I've said before, I think Mists of Pandaria is the perfect expansion for the Remix concept. And it is. But the second most ideally suited expansion is definitely Legion. Like Mists, it's still held up as one of the best expansions ever. Like Mists, it has a very strong, consistent theme and visual identity. Like Mists, it has some very cool and sought after rewards and collections, which it would be great to have on a vendor for me to buy with bronze. And there are loads of ways in which WoW's greenest expansion can just slot seamlessly into the Remix template. It certainly looks like Blizzard are positioning it to fill the gap between the last patches of the War Within and the release of Midnight. The opening scenario of the Broken Shore works as a standardized intro into the action, and it's different for Horde and Alliance, just like the opening scenarios of Mists. You could argue that the questing and story component of Legion is actually better suited to Remix than Mists was, because the Broken Isles 4 leveling zones were designed to be approached in any order thanks to the new level scaling technology introduced for it. Like Mists, Legion expands into other new zones at max level, or lower than max level in Remix's case, which can have achievements attached to them that unlock event rewards. Mists did this with the Isle of Thunder and the Timeless Isle. Legion has the Broken Shore and, even better, Argus with its 3 mini-zones packed full of cool stuff. Legion has less dungeons and raids than Mists and doesn't have any scenarios, but it does have daily world quests and Legion invasion events and invasion portals, which would give players a varied daily source of bronze without having to run those same instances over and over. All of that Legion content is going to work just fine in the current remix setup, but Legion has so much else going on too, which Blizz can either choose to basically ignore or even disable, which is fair enough, and something they did with Mists. The whole scouring of the Veil was not a thing in Remix. We did not start in the golden pristine Veil that all the characters are talking about all the time and get to see it change like the Mists Classic kids will be able to. The developers obviously thought that was too much work to implement or couldn't work with the Remix formula, and there are similar features and content with Legion that they might do the same with. The Broken Shore contributions to activate the 3 different building operations, for example, seems like an obvious thing that just isn't going to be a part of Legion Remix. But there are some other features of this expansion that I really hope they do find a way to include, because I think that with just a little bit of effort and tweaking, they could actually work brilliantly in this remix format. Class order halls and artifact weapons. Class halls and artifacts were a compulsory part of the OG Legion experience. After the Broken Shore scenario, you were plonked in Dalaran and a dude would start following you around, incessantly making sure you knew that this questline to unlock an artifact was the thing you needed to do and that the game functionally would not progress without it. Even in Chromie time, when you get to Dalaran for the first time, you have to complete an artifact quest and set up your order hall so that you can select which zone to start questing in from the mission table. And this, in my opinion, should stay the same. The class identity of Legion was such a fundamental part of the expansion's whole raison d'etre, it would be sacrilege for Legion Remix to disable them or pretend that they don't exist. They have to be in there. They should be a mandatory opening part of Remix for any new character. And remember, in Remix, all characters are new. But then beyond that, like in Chromie time, order halls at least should be treated as optional story content, like all of the Mist story was. And that's going to mean tweaking basically anything to do with the mission table and order hall resources and follower missions. And man, those order hall quests where you have to do follower missions to progress and it takes like 3 days of waiting, and the order hall talent tree. Holy shit, you've forgotten about that, right? And that's good. We should forget about that because all that should be gone. The order hall storylines and the Zira Illidan Chosen One story connected to it should all just be presented as a standard quest chain. All present, all completable in one go. These are quests that hardly anyone has done since the Legion expansion because they are such an effort to run when you're leveling, when you could just be blasting through High Mountain for the 90th time. So the chance to do and see them all again is exactly the kind of thing that Legion Remix should be encouraging, with rewards to match. More on that later. And you are probably nodding sagely. That all seems pretty straightforward, sure, but actually I've buried the lead a bit here by talking about order halls, haven't I? Because a far bigger question in Legion Remix is the artifact weapons. In Chromie time, after you've bagged your first artifact and set up your order hall, you are free to progress through the expansion however you like for your leveling, choosing which zone to start in from your order hall mission table. The artifact is a nice new appearance if you didn't have it already, but it doesn't do anything. Any power gains connected to it were disabled at the end of Legion, but during that expansion, artifacts marked the beginning of what is now known as the Borrowed Power era of WoW. Your artifact leveled throughout the game, unlocked new abilities, got stronger and more badass, and you know, that's a bit like the cloak in Remix Pandaria, isn't it? Where everything we do, every baddie we kill, every quest or dungeon or raid that we complete drops threads, which levels up our super timey-wimey cloak and is one of the reasons we get so uber powerful. Why can't that be our artifact in Legion Remix instead? Making your weapon where all your huge power gains go instead of a cloak is obvious and will help to recapture the feel of Legion, but I think we can do more than that, because I say we use it to fix an issue with Mist's Remix at the same time and merge the gear upgrade system into it as well. Most obviously, this would mean it's where all of your gems go. Artifact UIs already have loads of nodes on them from Legion. Just make those gem slots that you whack everything into instead of some on your hat, some on your gloves, and some on all the different parts of your armor that you have to go through the ball ache of swapping out every time you get new gear. No, this sucked. Everyone hated it. Make it all centralized on the artifact instead. A huge improvement from the Finickety Mists remix approach, in my opinion. But also, I would go even further. I would make an argument for making all of your gear upgrades part of artifact progression too. So instead of spending bronze on improving your gear item level, piece by piece, level by level, and not being able to spend that bronze on cool ass rewards, tie that increasing gear item level to artifact power instead. Every time you collect a certain amount of threads of fate, all those base stats connected to the artifact like they were the cloak go up as usual, but also at certain thresholds, all of your gear is set at certain upgrade levels as well. To level 2, then 3, all the way up to 36, as it was in Mists. Make it happen automatically and passively as part of your artifact leveling up when you collect threads of fate, freeing up all of that bronze to be just what you spend on the cosmetic rewards. So the remix artifact weapon can be better than the cloak in Mists remix, but actually it can be better than the artifact in Legion too, because obviously we're going to make the progress all 3 artifacts for your class, all 4 if you're a druid, character wide. If you're at level 12 on your Beast Mastery artifact, you're at level 12 on your Marksman and Survival artifacts too. They are functionally the same, because the way Legion worked is dumb. Oh, and also that progress is Legion remix wide too. So if you go start a rogue, then all their artifacts will be at level 12 as well when you pick them up, because that's how we do that shit in WoW now, okay? Artifacts are such an obvious and elegant answer to so many of the problems and chaff in remix Pandaria that to not use them in this way would be negligent, honestly. That raises another obvious question, doesn't it? What about evokers? They weren't around in Legion. They don't have artifacts or order halls. If you take an evoker back to that content now, you get a little mission table to use in Dalaran to choose the zone where you level in, and that's that. But if we are making artifacts a central part of the remix experience, then them not having one, it's going to be a problem, isn't it? Yeah, a little one, and it is a little simple fix. If not an entirely easy one, just give them an artifact. Design one from scratch or make it a recolor of their Dragonflight legendary. Draw up a quick leveling tree for it and have a bronze dragon. Just give it to them when they get to Dalaran. You are an observer here, but you'll need this kind of thing. No need to make them a whole acquisition quest like the OG artifacts or build them an order hall, although that would be great, obviously. That would be amazing. I'd be very into that. I was not sure if it's feasible for the amount of work that Blizz would be willing to put into a remix season, and I really don't think it needs to be any hurdle or roadblock at all, honestly. Argus in the sky. Ooh, right, yeah.
Hey everyone, it's me. Hi, hello. I'm here today to say hi and hello, and to shout out Squarespace, who are very graciously sponsoring today's video. I don't know about you, but whenever late November rolls around, I start thinking about Christmas coming up and the year coming to a close, and instead of doing everything I should be doing, I procrastinate. That happened to me this morning when I looked at my to-do list and thought, why don't I update our website merch instead? I've used Squarespace to set up our merch shop before, which was an absolute breeze, but I think we can add a little something to it. So last night I had a dream that I put all the class colors on an embroidered beanie. Don't ask me why. And I was pretty delighted by how easy it was to make my dreams a reality. Thanks to Squarespace's Printful integration, I can design and have merch printed or embroidered on demand. Not only is designing an item as easy as pie, you also get automatically generated mock-ups with extremely cool people to market your product for you, which you can edit even further if you like. But the thing I love most about the whole process is how instantaneous it is. Creating an item on Printful automatically adds it to your Squarespace product list. Still need to make some changes to an item or description? You can do that directly on your own site. And on top of all that, your actual website updates with a new product list automatically. Like magic. But I know it's not magic, it's just Squarespace. Do you want a fun and clever way to procrastinate? Maybe by building your own website. Just head to squarespace.com/Taliesin and Evitel, where you can enjoy 10% off your first purchase of a Squarespace website or domain, or just use code Taliesin and Evitel if you prefer. That's squarespace.com/Taliesin and Evitel. The eagle-eyed among you may have noticed that Rogue Yellow is at the bottom of my rainbow graphic and therefore not in alphabetical order. That was 100% on purpose. They were stealthing.
This was such a huge part of Legion's vibe, and I'm guessing that Blizz will put it into the Scouring of the Veil category of this is not a change to the game world that we will be representing in Remix. And Blizzard, I'm here to say, listen to me, look at me. I'm here to tell you right now, don't do that. That would be a huge waste, wouldn't it? Just make it appear in the sky for players after you complete the Nighthold raid, just like in Legion. You do the raid for the first time, bang, Argus is in the sky for that character. Oh man, it was so awesome. It's iconic, it's cool, I miss it. Don't wait for Legion Remix on this one, Blizz. Get that planet there, in the sky, in Remix. Suramar. Yes, we are going to have the full 2-patch spanning Suramar campaign in its entirety. Yes, we're going to take all the rep grinding requirements out of the progression and present it as one long and very cool questline that people don't do anymore, so that Remix players can experience it in all its glory once again. Honestly, being able to just play through this story would be one of the main draws of Legion Remix for loads of players, and rightfully so, because it's awesome. Some of the best endgame content that the game has ever seen. And yes, we're going to unlock a new artifact appearance for doing it, just like we did in Legion, which leads us very nicely to rewards. Legion has so many great rewards that can just appear on the vendor, just like in Miss Remix. But along with all of the mounts and tier sets and toys that you'd expect, and there are loads and they are brilliant, don't forget Legion is the expansion that really introduced what we call now the Legion Glow. Oh, I love the Legion Glow. Here are some things that I would make sure are there on the vendor as well. The Ghost Moose mount and all of the cool toys that are part of the Legion archaeology questlines. There's loads, get them in there. The Xavius shoulders, because obviously, all of the class mounts, no matter the class, of course. So yeah, you can buy the priest mount on your Remix Death Knight character, even if only priests can use it. Maybe being able to buy these is a reward for completing a full Order Hall campaign, so there is still an unlock involved. All in all, exactly like the class set appearances in Remix Pandaria. Legion Legendaries. You could get old trinkets in Remix Pandaria, and I think, and I know this is going to be controversial, but I think all of the class legendaries should be available and usable in Remix Legion. Some of them will need slight alterations if the spell they impact doesn't exist anymore, or if the effect has become baseline or whatever. But honestly, looking through a list now, it seems that very few, if any, will need that treatment. Also, there were Pandaria Remix gems that could just straight up give you an ability that you already had as part of your class, and it wouldn't be much different from that. I don't care how unbalanced it is, I think it would be dope. And since all the gems and gear upgrades are now attached to your artifact, there's all the gear slots that you'd need for them. All of the class artifact appearances available for purchase, again, no matter your class. So all of those appearances and secret appearances and recolors for all those appearances, put them on the vendor. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wait, all of the appearances? Like the Mage Tower appearances too? Well, yeah, actually. It's been 6 years or so since those appearances disappeared from the game. I am a player who has nearly all of them from the time, and I am here saying to you, yes, let people buy them with Remix Bronze when the time comes. It's fine. We will live. We will be okay. I'm not as against time-limited rewards as many people are. I think there's something kind of cool about some very rare appearances being a you had to be there kind of deal. I think there is room for that in the rich tapestry of WoW gear and rewards, so if I'm completely honest, I would like it best if they were slight recolors of the OG appearances so that my originals remain recognizable and unique. But honestly, I wouldn't be against the existing color variants being sold if that's how it turns out. I've had 8 years of my hot pink Discipline Wings staff, I can't really complain. The big question for me is, will you unlock the ability to buy those appearances by completing a remix Mage Tower? Well, Mage Tower. I set out with this video desperately trying to make Mage Tower work in a Legion remix. It's such an iconic and legendary bit of content that it seems criminal to me not to have a remix version for players to enjoy. But I have to admit, whatever ideas I come up for it, nothing feels satisfying. Power gains, which are half the fun of remix, would make the challenge a nothing burger to complete. So you'd have to have a standard class gear template for each spec that goes in there, which would work, but then it would have to be basically stupidly easy so everyone is capable of completing it with the same gear, and that kind of defies the whole point of the Mage Tower, right? Goes against the whole ethos, and the standardized gear thing and it being very easy is the most likely scenario, I know. And then completing Mage Tower on your remix character would allow you to purchase all of the Mage Tower appearances and recolors. It makes sense, but I just don't love it. And it kind of betrays why I have such great memories of the Mage Tower in the first place. The hours of attempts on classes I hadn't even played before in some cases. The fail and get up and go again boss fight feel of it would be gone, and that would be a shame. My position on the remix Mage Tower is, I don't know. I genuinely would love to hear your opinions on whether it should be included and how it would work in the comments. I'm leaning towards it still exists in the game right now, maybe don't bother with it in remix. Likewise, Mythic Plus, another huge Legion innovation. I just don't know if there's room for it in a remix. Look, there were complaints when the gear progression system in Pandaria invited huge amounts of unnecessary toxicity in what should have been a chill event. Can you imagine running Cathedral of Eternal Night plus 15? Probably not a great idea, no. And there you have it, my plan for Legion Remix. But what do you think? Has my rugged insistence on including certain Legion fundamentals ruined the entire thing? Or do you like my ideas? What would you do differently? Let us know in the comments below. And thanks for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real life money to make all of our work happen. Patrons, seriously, thank you, because without you, there'd be a whole lot less Taliesin and Evitel. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Tyrion Fordring. Why didn't he just bubble half? No, my name is Taliesin from me and Evitel. Until next time, cheerio.